Before people carved their stories into stone, the world was already marked by the fallen. Beings of light, choosing darkness, whose sins would forever shape the world. There was a time, long before even Noah's flood, a mysterious age long forgotten. In that ancient past, darkness quietly crept across the world. Up in the sky, the sons of God, angelic watchers, looked down with curiosity. That's when they saw the daughters of men whose beauty was almost too much to handle. Things became unstable. The world fell into chaos nobody would ever forget. Giants roamed the earth. Curiosity turned into desire. Desire led to rebellion. And with that act, the heavens broke apart forever. Before we begin, dear friends, please subscribe to the channel. If you are already subscribed, don't forget to like the video. Let's get started without further ado. Cities were built with iron and blood, and the echoes of those dark deeds still echo through the ages. Everything we see today started in the shadows of those who dared to challenge heaven itself. Under a heavy sky filled with unspoken fate, Samyaza, the leader of the fallen angels, gathered 200 of his brothers on the snow-covered peaks of Mount Hermon. The cold air stung their faces, but nothing mattered more than what was about to happen. Time seemed to freeze, waiting for the moment that would seal their fate. Samyaza spoke with a steady voice. "I fear I might be the only one paying the price for this sin." A heavy silence fell, broken only when another angel spoke up. "No, Samyaza," he said softly, "we will all swear it. We're all in this now. What's done can't be undone," Samyaza said firmly. "Then so be it. Our fate is sealed. The fall is bound to happen." With that they made their vow, a promise that would change their very souls and condemn them forever. The pact was made with a strength that no one could break. There was no turning back. They weren't just falling, they were committing to the fall and everything that came with it. So they descended, not with the gentle grace of angels, but with the raw power of an unavoidable crash. They fell like blazing stars, streaking through the sky and leaving chaos behind. When their feet hit the ground, the earth seemed to shake beneath them. Their forms blazed with a dark, unholy light. For a moment, the silent universe itself seemed to pause. People on the ground stared in awe and terror, frozen by the sheer scale of those towering, glowing figures, and unable to grasp just how huge this moment really was. And then, with a voice heavy with dark power, Samyaza spoke. He looked at his fellow fallen and the mortals around him. "What has been done cannot be undone," he said. "We are the fallen, and from now on, everything will change." Using the fiery essence of their fallen grace, the angels took human wives and had children. But these weren't ordinary offspring. No, these children weren't just like any other humans. They carried an ancient hunger in their eyes and a strength that defied the natural order. They grew fast and tall, so big that their bodies blocked out the sun. They were the Nephilim, giants born from a pact that sealed their fate, and in doing so, sealed the fate of the world too. The burden of their fall was plain to see in them. The world would never be the same again. Their very presence was a terrifying shadow, spreading fear and dread through every human tribe. Children born from fallen angels and mortal women, these beings had strength and cleverness far beyond what humans could imagine. They rose to be kings and tyrants, gods and monsters. To some, they were legendary heroes, to others, pure nightmares. At first, their hunger was simple. They devoured animals and fruits from the land without mercy. But soon that hunger grew. Nothing in nature was enough anymore. their eyes turned toward humanity itself. The chase began, and with it, the world started to suffer. The earth itself started to rot and twist into something horrible. It gave birth to monstrous creatures, deformed and twisted abominations that should never have existed. Impossible hybrids born from the mixing of species that divine laws had kept apart. Every scream of pain, every tear shed by humans seemed to feed the corruption, spreading like a deadly disease. And watching all this were the Watchers, celestial beings, their divine parents who saw but did nothing, or perhaps secretly helped. They kept forbidden secrets from the heavens, secrets meant to stay hidden, yet they shared them with humanity even as chaos unfolded around them. The Man Tribe. Azazel, the prince among the fallen, showed men how to make weapons, sharp swords, nearly indestructible shields, tools of war that would shape kingdoms soaked in blood. Others brought dark arts, astrology, magic, spells that twist the soul and bend the will. People, drunk on this knowledge, fell deeper into corruption. Violence stopped being a punishment, it became a way to celebrate. Chaos was now the rule. Even nature seemed to protest. The skies darkened, hiding the sun. The earth itself looked sick, showing signs of a sickness as old as the mountains. A rotting spread from the core of life down to its deepest roots. This was the start of an age of shadows, where gods and humans clashed, and for a moment the world was gripped by a horror so deep it would never be forgotten. In that dark pit of decay, when hope seemed lost, like a candle snuffed out in the wind, a sign from the divine suddenly appeared. A voice, strong and clear, rose from the chaos, carrying the weight of an ancient promise. God, in his endless wisdom and justice, sent a man into this world. Not just anyone, but someone chosen, someone who walked hand in hand with the Creator, fearless and unshaken. His name was Enoch. He lived in a land torn apart by the corruption and tyranny of the Nephilim, where darkness and oppression ruled unchecked. Yet Enoch's voice cut through the silence like thunder in the desert. He wasn't afraid of the giants or the fallen angels whose wickedness had poisoned everything. He knew deep down that the Almighty was with him. With that unwavering faith, Enoch spread his message on the wind. O children of heaven, you who left your heavenly home and defiled the earth, hear this: the Most High sees all. He will come to judge. His words burned like fire, a prophecy that echoed across the mountains and deserts, carried on the breeze. Only a few people listened when he warned them. The world mocked him, laughing at the old prophet as if he was crazy. They didn't see the storm coming, lurking just beyond the horizon like a never-ending shadow. But God's judgment had already started, even if no one noticed. The giants kept ruling with their cruel towers, towering like symbols of pure arrogance. Their laws, written in blood, were enforced with brutal force. People, lost and unsure of themselves, began to copy the cruelty they condemned. Enoch walked through the ruins of cities the Nephilim had destroyed. His heart was heavy with grief for a world falling apart. He spoke of visions burning inside his mind, visions of a future where everything would be burned to ash. He saw it clearly, the end. Mountains melting like wax, everything swallowed by total, irreversible destruction. The stars will fall from the sky, and the armies of the Lord will come down in fire and fury. When the fallen angels heard those words, something they'd never felt before took hold of them. Fear.
For the first time, they trembled. These beings, who had fallen because of pride, now came to Enoch. Their once glowing forms now dark and somber, trembling at what was coming. "Prophet," they begged, "please intercede for us. Take our plea to the Creator. We ask for His mercy." Enoch, burdened with the weight of being a messenger of God, took their prayers and went to his throne. But he knew, deep down, that the time for mercy had already passed. Judgment was decided, and the scales of justice were about to tip forever against the fallen angels. When Enoch came back, his face was heavy with grief. His eyes told the story. These rebels had no hope left. He looked at the fallen angels, their despair swallowed by the certainty of what was coming. There will be no peace for you.
Your children, the giants, will fall right before your eyes. You'll have to watch everything you've built crumble. The words hit like a lightning strike, shattering the quiet around them. The weight of those words felt heavy, echoing across the land as the sky seemed to prepare itself to deliver the long-awaited judgment. In the wide stretches of the land where the giants had their reign, their huge figures moved like gods who couldn't be beaten. They were full of pride, confident in their strength, and completely blind to any hint of their downfall. They thought they were invincible, ignoring the faint sounds of their end drawing near. Their hearts, hardened by violence and destruction, made the idea of fate seem far away and almost meaningless. Time moved on, relentless as a rushing stream, and they didn't realize how close the end was getting. Out on the horizon, a dark cloud started to gather. As everything around them fell into decay, a new figure stepped out from the shadows. A simple man, his heart marked by tough times, with no fame or power, just something even more precious, a pure heart. His rough hands told stories of hard work and a humble life he'd chosen. His name was Noah. He wasn't the kind of hero with a grand look or fame, but his spirit shone like a bright light in the darkness. His eyes, still full of hope, looked up to the sky, even when the world was drowning in evil. Noah walked alone, but he never really was. While the giants fought their endless wars and their cities turned to ruins, Noah kept walking with God. He was like a flicker of justice in a world that was quickly losing its way. The people around him were drowning in wickedness, corruption, and violence. Then, one night, when the wind felt heavy and almost like it was carrying the weight of the world, something extraordinary happened. A bright light appeared from the sky. Not a fiery blast of destruction, but a gentle blaze that wouldn't burn away. It was God's presence, a powerful force that filled Noah with awe beyond words, yet also brought a strange peace. The air grew thick with a divine energy that nobody could ignore. A voice echoed, saying, "Behold, the end of all flesh has come before me. The earth is full of violence, and because of that, I will wipe it all out along with the earth. Build yourself an ark." Noah, trembling but trusting, didn't hesitate. Doubt had no place here. The message was clear. With steady hands and a determined heart, he started building the ark, knowing he was part of something much bigger than himself. The only sound in the quiet was the tap of the hammer hitting the wood. It was a simple, steady rhythm, but it carried so much meaning. Each strike was his quiet answer to the chaos happening all around him. People nearby saw his progress and started to gather, sneering and mocking. "Look at that old man," they'd say. "He's building a ship on dry land. Has he lost his mind? Where's this flood he talks about?" But Noah didn't say a word. His strength came from the wood he was cutting, from the ark slowly taking shape.
He stayed calm, knowing deep down that he was working on something way bigger than himself. As Noah kept at his task, the sky above seemed to shift with divine power. Angels received divine commands, their wings stretching toward the earth. Raphael, the mighty archangel, was sent on a mission to catch Azazel, the rebel leader who had led Earth's creatures astray. Deep in the mountains, Raphael finally found him, a being of incredible power and pure despair. With chains made of spiritual fire, he bound Azrael and threw him into a dark, endless abyss where he would stay forever. Meanwhile, Gabriel, the messenger, had a different job. He was sent to plant seeds of doubt among the giants, hoping that destruction wouldn't come just from outside, but from within their own hearts. He whispered words of mistrust, envy, and hatred, slowly turning friends into enemies. Soon, the last war of the giants was about to kick off, a brutal fight with no mercy and no real winners. All the while, Noah kept working away, completely unaware of what was happening. To him, the ark wasn't just a big boat. It was a promise, a quiet vow that they would survive whatever came. A promise hung in the air, a flicker of hope amid all the chaos swirling around them. It was a reminder that there was still a chance, just one, to save what was left of purity, life, and hope. So even as everything around him seemed to fall apart, Noah kept going, pounding away at his task, each beat like the last echo of justice in a world gone mad. And then, in the silence that followed, God spoke one final time.
"Come into the ark, you and all your household." And they listened. From every corner of the earth, the impossible started to happen. Birds with mighty wings swooped down from the sky, flying in tight flocks, slicing through the air like living arrows, settling in pairs at the foot of the ark. From the fields and forests, herds of animals moved as one, like a flowing river of flesh and bone, all guided by a voice only they could hear. Out in the deserts, reptiles crawled through the dust, obeying a call only they understood. All around, beasts, lions, bears, elephants, and creatures that had never known peace. They marched together, no longer fighting, no longer afraid, just peaceful, side by side. On the seventh day, Noah and his family stepped into the ark, and then something beyond what anyone could expect happened. The massive door, so heavy no human hand could move it, was shut tight. But it wasn't just any human doing it. It was God himself sealing them in. An eerie silence fell, heavy and tense, like the calm before a storm. Then, suddenly, the sky changed. Dark clouds gathered, piling high and thick, blocking out all the sunlight. The sun disappeared behind the black walls. Lightning flashed across the sky, but not like normal lightning. It tore through the heavens like blazing swords, jagged and fierce. Each lightning bolt felt like the very fabric of the world was being ripped apart. A low, guttural sound echoed from deep inside the earth, a groan that seemed to come from the core of everything, as if the world itself was crying out in pain. The earth shook, and then the roar hit, loud enough to drown out everything, like 1,000 storms crashing together. Suddenly, the deep waters burst forth, flooding the land with wild, unstoppable force. It was as if the very belly of the earth had opened up and spat out rivers of rage. Above, the sky itself seemed to tear apart, throwing open its gates. And from above, endless sheets of water poured down. Not just rain, but thick, heavy walls of liquid, like solid curtains of death draping everything in sight. The world was gripped by panic, running in every direction, desperate for safety. People shouted for help, for mercy.
Meanwhile, the Nephilim, those tall, proud giants, the offspring of corruption, climbed to the highest mountains, sure that their size and strength could save them from the chaos. Among them, maybe Gilgamesh, for someone like him, raised his voice against the thunder, shouting back at the heavens. A fierce, angry roar, a defiant challenge to the very one who had unleashed this fury.
The sky didn't speak in words. Instead, it answered with thunder, a lightning bolt splitting the heavens apart, and waters rising without end, crushing everything in their path. The mountains, once sturdy and tall, turned into fleeting islands. Soon enough, even they were swallowed up by the relentless flood. A massive whirlpool pulled giants under, their roars mixing with despair and resistance, lost in the crashing foam. Their shouts, combined with those of people, formed one terrible scream, a chorus of fear that was drowned out by the rising tide. For 40 days and 40 nights, the world was torn apart. Trees were ripped from the ground, and the grand temples and palaces of kings vanished like grains of sand swept away by the storm. Nothing was left alive. No voices, no signs of human life. It was as if creation itself had been wiped clean by tears of divine judgment. When the roaring finally stopped, all that could be heard was the steady sound of water, covering everything. Deep valleys, tall mountains, the whole world submerged. Out there, in the endless, empty ocean, a small wooden boat drifted alone. Tiny, but carrying hope, life itself. The terrible storm was over. The waters which had hidden the earth for so long slowly began to pull back. The deafening sounds of the deep stopped echoing. The sea that had swallowed cities and mountains was now revealing patches of land. And on that land, resting gently on the mountains of Ararat, was the Ark, an enormous craft built by a faithful man. Silence settled in, deep and almost sacred. It felt like everything was waiting, renewed, purified, ready for what would come next. Then, suddenly, the wood groaned. The door creaked open. Noah and his family finally stepped off the boat. Their feet, which for so long had only felt the wooden planks and the gentle rocking of the waves, finally touched solid ground. The air was crisp and fresh, filled with a sense of new beginnings.
Noah looked around. There were no grand cities, no mighty empires, no thrones. Just bare rocks, young trees starting to grow, and a vast, endless sky stretching out before them. In that quiet moment, Noah decided to build something simple but meaningful. Not made of gold or marble, but out of ordinary stones he found in the damp soil. An altar of thanks. He lit a fire and smoke curled upward. It wasn't just ash. It carried a silent prayer, a gentle whisper carried on the wind. Then, something incredible happened. The sky opened in a burst of color. A rainbow stretched across the heavens, majestic and bright. It wasn't just rain's leftover light, but the Creator's own mark, a sign of a promise. God's voice seemed to echo through eternity, saying that never again would water wipe out all life. It was a promise of mercy, a sacred covenant sealed in the sky. Years turned into centuries, and with each passing generation, life grew richer. The land teemed with people, kingdoms, and new cultures. The earth gave its bounty, cities sprang up, and trade thrived. Laughter and life returned to the streets. The world started to heal, but some scars never fully faded. In the quiet moments of this new land, old memories still whispered softly, stories told around crackling campfires.
People spoke of dark times long past,
when giants roamed among humans. And those stories weren't just tales, they were real. The Anakim, the Rephaim, the Imim, these mighty beings appeared in Canaan. Huge warriors whose shouts could shake the ground. Their swords were as thick as trees, their shields like moving walls, and their steps thundered like storms. It was almost as if the ancient Nephilim had come back. When Moses, chosen by God, led the Israelites toward the Promised Land, he sent 12 men to scout ahead. They wandered through lush valleys, spotted strong cities with tall walls, and saw vineyards so huge that carrying a single bunch of grapes needed 2 men. But they also encountered the giants. When they got back, 10 of them spoke with shaky, scared voices. They said, "The land swallows its people. We saw the children of Enoch. They were so big, we felt like grasshoppers next to them, and that's how they saw us too." The people started crying, and whispers of hopelessness spread everywhere. People's faith started to shake, but 2 men refused to give in to fear. Joshua and Caleb stood up and shouted to the frightened crowd, "Don't be scared. The Lord is with us. These giants are no match for us. They'll fall before God's power." They spoke brave words in the face of overwhelming fear. And sure enough, when the moment came, under Joshua's leadership, Israel moved forward. The sound of trumpets filled the valleys, loud and clear. The dust kicked up by thousands of feet swirled in the air. They weren't marching for fame or a crown. They were marching for the promise. The giant cities loomed tall, like walls against the sky. Reindeer, massive fortresses, gates so high they looked like portals to another world. But no wall could stand against the power of the living God. The giants roared, their spears reaching high like towers. Their shouts echoed like thunder. Still, before the Lord, they were nothing but dust. One by one, they fell. The fear of men was swept away by the strength of the promise. And then at last, the last shadow disappeared. The final Rephite king, known as Bashan, ruled over it all. His name was already legend. Fame had gone before him, announcing his arrival. The sound of trumpets echoed through the valleys, loud and clear. Dust from thousands of feet kicked up into the air, swirling around. They weren't marching for fame or a crown, but for something much bigger, the promise. The giant cities rose up, tall and imposing, like walls against the sky. Reindeer, huge fortresses with gates so high they looked like portals to another world. But no wall could stand up to the power of the living God. The giants roared, their spears reaching up like towers. Their shouts boomed like thunder. Still, before the Lord, they were just dust. One by one, they fell. The fear that gripped men was swept away by the strength of the promise. And finally, the last shadow vanished. The final Rephite king, Bashan, ruled over everything. His name was already legendary. Fame had gone ahead of him, announcing his arrival. There was a shepherd named David, armed with just a staff, a slingshot, and 5 smooth stones he picked up from a stream. The silence on the battlefield was heavy. On one side, there was Goliath, this massive armored giant who seemed almost invincible. On the other, a young shepherd boy with only faith and courage in his heart. Goliath sneered, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? Come here and I'll feed your flesh to the birds." He taunted him with sword, spear, and javelin, but David wasn't afraid. Instead, he stood tall and said, "You come at me with weapons, but I come in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel's armies. Today, the Lord will hand you over to me." Everyone watched in silence,
angels holding their breath. Then David took a stone, slung it with all his might. It whistled through the air, a blur, a hiss, and then, crack! Goliath's giant form collapsed face down onto the ground. That old fear that had haunted people for generations was broken by a boy and a single stone. Without hesitation, David ran up, grabbed Goliath's sword, and cut off his head. When the Philistine army saw their champion fall, they panicked and turned tail, running in terror. The nightmare was finally over. Under David's leadership, the last of the giants were hunted down and wiped out. Ishbanob, Sophlami, and the remaining cursed descendants fell one after another. They weren't killed by angels or gods, just ordinary men, armed with something the giants could never understand. The era of darkness was gone. People still remembered the Nephilim, but now their story served as a warning. It's a tale whispered through generations, a reminder that even the darkest evil can be defeated. It's not brute strength that beats giants, it's faith.
And so, the echoes of the Nephilim faded into dust, leaving behind only the tales carved into memory and scripture. From the fall of angels to the rise of kings, from the flood that silenced the world to the stone that ended a giant, one truth remained unshaken. No darkness is too great, no evil too ancient, no enemy too powerful when faith stands its ground. These stories aren't just legends from forgotten ages. They're warnings, reminders, and glimpses into a world where heaven and earth once collided. And if the shadows of the past still whisper today, what else waits in the silence? If this journey through ancient terror and divine judgment gripped your imagination, don't leave without supporting the channel. Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next descent into the mysteries of the unseen.